So I have finally seen The Long Walk. Now, this movie came out a few days ago. It came out on the 12th of September, and it's currently the 16th of September, the day I'm recording this video. I saw the movie last night because, I wasn't super intrigued with it at first because I think the first time I heard about this movie was actually when I went to go see the movie Weapons back in August. Yes, I did go see that movie. That is the movie with all the kids in the classroom who all end up disappearing at the same time. They all just poof out of existence. Then it ends up being that they're in like this basement and they're like possessed by this like evil aunt. I have seen that movie because a lot of people are also gassing up that movie just like they were gassing up this movie, and so I had to check out both movies. And I did like Weapons, it was pretty good. Both movies are rated R, by the way, but Weapons is more of a horror movie, whereas The Long Walk is more of just kind of like a elevated thriller movie, but also still rated R at the same time. But it was an interesting movie to say the least. I mean, the movie basically starts and ends with everybody walking. Like, you don't get no, like, pre long walk or anything like that. Well, you do kind of get a little bit because the movie opens with the main character, Ray Garrity. He gets this invitation to come to the long walk because, the long walk is basically this thing where a bunch of boys they enter this tournament and they have to see how far they can walk before they can't walk anymore, and then if you stop walking, you die. So, you know, there's like 50 or so boys who enter this tournament, and Ray Garrity is one of them. He is essentially the main character. You do have some other like supporting characters. You have Peter McVriez, you have Art Baker, you have Hank Olson, and then you have these other characters who aren't really as important but still pretty important. Like you have Barkovich, you have Collie Parker, and then you have this one guy Stebbins, and then pretty sure those are essentially your main characters. You do get some other characters. Oh, there's also this guy Harkness who's like writing a book inside the Long Walk. But yeah, those are essentially your main characters in this movie. And I went into this movie fully expecting Ray to be the person who wins because in the book, which I didn't really know too much of before going into this movie, like I said, I'm pretty sure I first heard about this movie when I went to go see Weapons. I'm pretty sure. I might have heard of the movie beforehand, but I don't really remember ever hearing about this movie aside from seeing the trailer for it at the movie Weapons. So it might have only been like a month ago when I first heard about this movie. I'm not too sure. But yeah, I didn't really know about the book at the time. It's just the trailer for it looked pretty interesting, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll check that out when it comes out in September. But like, I wasn't super eager to see it, which is why I'm only reviewing it a few days after it has came out. But yeah, I ended up going to see it because I went to go see it with a friend of mine. So we both saw it, and it just absolutely it's insane to say the least. It is a crazy movie because, like I said, you start at the Long Walk, you end at the Long Walk. You do get some like backstory here and there of like before the Long Walk, but not a whole lot. It is mostly just of Ray's side. It shows like how he lost his father and all that kind of stuff, and what basically motivated him to enter the Long Walk. But yeah, basically it is a tournament to see how far you can go before you can't anymore, and the winner of the Long Walk gets to ask for basically anything that they want. And one of the other main characters, Peter McVriez, he is basically like, oh, if I win the Long Walk, I'll make it so that there can be two winners, so that people who bond over the Long Walk can win together. Because it's kind of like Squid Game where there's only one winner, but he wants to make it so that if you bond over a long walk, then you can win together, which I guess makes sense. But then Ray's like, they're not gonna let that happen. And then, like I said, I was fully expecting Ray to be the winner of this movie because in the book, he is the winner of the long walk in the book. Because after I watched the movie, I ended up going back and seeing what the ending of the book was. Turns out the ending of the book, the ending of the movie, are two very different endings. Because basically, the ending of the book has it where Ray is the winner, and basically, after all his friends die in the long walk, he like practically like loses his mind because he continues to walk even after winning the tournament because he sees this like dark figure out in the distance, and so he like starts running towards the figure, and that is essentially how the book ends, with him running towards the dark figure, which is just like a hallucination in his mind. And it's kind of a crazy ending, I'm not gonna lie. It also ends during the daytime, but the movie has it where it ends during the nighttime, and it has a completely different winner. Yes, that is right. In the movie, it is not Ray Garrity who wins in the movie, because I was fully expecting him to be the winner in the movie. I was like, oh, they're gonna pull that same, trend. We're having the main character as the winner. That is not what happens in this movie. In the movie, they have it where Peter McFreeze is the winner. And when that happened, I was just like, holy moly, I can't believe they did that, because they have it where even like the order of how people die aren't exactly like the book, because I think it is the same for the most part, except towards the very end, because the very end of the movie has it to where it's the same three finalists. You have Ray Garrity, you have Peter McReas, and you have Stebbins, who is the son of the major in the movie and book. And like I said, it's the same three contestants that are left in both the book and the movie. But in the book, it is Peter McVrias who ends up dying third, and then is just left to Stebbins and Ray Garrity. But in the movie, you have it where Stebbins dies third, and then it's just simply Ray and Peter who are left. And I think the reason why they ended up changing it was because they wanted to go with more of a emotional, kind of ending, which I guess makes sense, because in the book you have it to where it's just the two of them left, and they just kind of walk in silence for a long time until Stebbins eventually just drops dead, and like I said, Ray ends up running towards the dark figure that is just a hallucination in his mind. So I like that they kind of took a more emotional approach with Peter and Ray being the last two contestants for the movie, and I do think it's kind of crazy that they had Peter be the winner in the movie, whereas it is Ray in the book, and both adaptation or both adaptations, I guess you could say, have it where it is kind of left like open ended, because they both technically end with the winner continuing to walk, because after Peter wins, his wish is essentially what Ray's wish is earlier on in the film, because Ray wishes that, he would be given the gun that the soldiers used to kill the contestants. He wishes that they would give it to him so that he could kill the major. And then Peter's all like, oh, that's not the right thing to do, because that's vengeance, and vengeance is never the answer. But after Ray sacrifices himself for Peter in the movie, Peter is, or Peter's wish is that he wishes for the gun that the soldiers use to kill the contestants, and he uses the gun to shoot the major, and then just continues to walk. So both of them kind of are left open ended in a way, to where it's like, what's real and what isn't real. But I'm pretty sure that Peter does still end up dying in the movie, because if you listen closely to the ending of the movie, you can faintly hear the sound of like a rifle going off as soon as the screen goes black, because the last shot is Peter continuing to walk even though he's already won the competition. And then as soon as the screen goes black, you hear like this gunshot in the background. So, it's pretty obvious that I think after Peter shoots the major, the soldiers ended up killing him, because everything around Peter just disappears after he shoots the major. Like the soldiers around him disappear, the crowd that's watching the long walk, because once it's down to the final two, there's this crowd that watches them, and so, they witness everything. Like they witness Ray sacrificing himself, and then they witness him shooting the major. But after Peter shoots the major, everything around Peter disappears. So it's like, after he shot the major, I'm pretty sure that the soldiers shot him, and then he's just essentially walking like towards the light as in death. So, is there really a winner at the long walk? Not really. But overall, I thought the movie was pretty dang solid, but it did get kind of insane at sometimes. Like I said, it is rated R, so it does not hold back. I think this movie has one of the craziest scenes I think I have ever seen in a movie, because I don't even know if I want to talk about it, because it is wild to say the least. Because like I said, this movie's rated R. They do not hold back in this movie. It is kind of gross to say the least. That is what I'm going to say. Because there is one scene that I can talk about. It is the scene where Harkness dies, the guy who's writing the book, of course, because they end up having to go like across this like really like steep hill that kind of like goes up like this, and then they end up losing like 14 members of the Long Walk during that scene. And in that scene, Harkness ends up spraining his ankle, but he still has to continue walking, of course, if he wants to survive. So, he's walking with a sprained ankle, and I'll never forget that moment in the theater when it shows his ankle right before he dies. I just heard everyone in the theater all go as soon as it showed his ankle, and it was kind of crazy to say the least. Yeah, he ends up dying from his sprained ankle, of course. But yeah, some of the deaths in this movie were absolutely insane because it is rated R, so it is wild to say the least. But yeah, overall, I had a pretty good time with this movie. If I had to rate it, I would give it like a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was pretty good. I would recommend checking it out, but yeah, like I said, that ending completely caught me off guard. I guess it's a way to subvert expectations because, people who've read the book, they'll go into the movie expecting Ray to win, just like I was, but that does not happen. And so I guess it's a way for both readers of the book and people like me who haven't read the book going into the movie to both be surprised by the ending. And I guess that's not a bad thing at the end of the day. Yeah, overall, I did think it was a pretty solid movie to say the least, and I would definitely recommend going to check it out. I kind of like that they start the long walk by like this happy, friendly competition of everybody walking, and then it just quickly escalates from there, and then it's just madness to say the least. There's this one guy in particular whose name is Markovich. He is kind of like the a-hole of the group, if you would say, because you're just rooting for him to die because he essentially gets one of the contestants killed because he like makes fun of their name, and then they end up like raging on him and ends up getting them killed, and he kind of feels bad about it, obviously. But by the end of the movie, he kind of comes around and was like, "Hey, I didn't mean for any like to get killed or anything like that," and then he ends up killing himself. So overall, it is a crazy movie, but I would recommend checking it out if that is what you're into. And if you have read the book, I do think that it is, a faithful adaptation up until the very end of the book. But yeah, overall, it is a pretty solid movie to say the least. And that is going to wrap it up for this video. We are only 69 subscribers away from 700. We are at 631. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. And I guess that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you have seen A Long Walk, you can let me know what you think of it. Like I said, I thought it was pretty solid. But I don't really know how they would make a sequel to this because there's no sequel book or anything like that. But I think this is kind of just one of those like one and done things. But it makes sense. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.